The $4 million supercar McLaren 720S, after an accident, was accidentally discovered by Dash Wong on an auction site. This made him extremely happy, because this is a car with top-tier response speed, a supercar built specifically for the track. Although it looked almost completely wrecked, the undeniable fact was that the price was very attractive. Without any hesitation, he purchased it immediately because Dash Wong had absolute confidence that he could restore this McLaren. He prepared a tow truck overnight and rushed to where the McLaren was located. After a 10-hour journey, he finally arrived at the parking lot. While loading the car, let's first visually assess the damage. This car had suffered a serious impact accident on the left side. The left door and front wheel had disappeared. The windshield was completely shattered. The front section was in terrible condition. Now, the car has been loaded onto the flatbed. I must say the insurance company was quite responsible. They also brought along the left door and detached wheel. Dash Wong checked them. Although the left front wheel, the rim was severely deformed. Fortunately, the brake disc and caliper were still good. Otherwise, these carbon ceramic brake discs would be quite costly. Now that the car was on the flatbed, without further ado, Dash Wong put the other parts into the pickup truck's bed. He tried to repair whatever possible. After all, parts for this car aren't cheap. Taking a photo with the car, Dash Wong rushed overnight to get and rushed back overnight to thoroughly inspect the damage. Dash Wong put the car on a lift. The front end was completely disfigured. The left rear fender was also deformed from impact. The rear bumper had very obvious scratch marks. Repairing these scratches would be relatively simple. The right side of the car was intact, and the right butterfly door opened normally. After a general inspection of the damage, still not feeling reassured, he carefully examined the left front wheel again to confirm whether the carbon ceramic brake disc was damaged. The control arm connecting the wheel would need replacement later. Looking more closely, the left front fender and door were both deformed and would need to be replaced later. All the airbags in the driver's seat had deployed. The windshield was completely broken, but the central control panel and dashboard were still good. The next step was to clean the debris from the interior. After using a vacuum to clean up the glass fragments, he checked if the engine could start normally. I estimate that with this car's condition, it would be extremely difficult. He removed the frame covering the battery, took out the battery, replaced it with a new one, and connected the wires. As expected, there was no response at all. But Dash Wong wasn't discouraged because this was normal. After all, the accident was quite severe. Then he began removing what needed to be removed, completing the removal of the windshield, then the front fenders and bumper, and also took care of the headlights in one go. Supercars are really different. Even with the total front end, it can be restored. For our regular cars, with engines in the front crashed like this, they would probably just be scrapped. So these cars only repair the front, not the back. In no time, the right fender and front bumper were removed. The outwardly bent frame rail had to be removed for careful inspection. Fortunately, it wasn't deformed. Dash Wong moved to the left side, removed the rear wheel to check the suspension system. This car has rear wheel steering, so it can move left and right. The rear suspension shock absorbers and control arms were all fine. Continuing to raise the vehicle to check the chassis, only a piece of carbon fiber panel at the front of the car had a slight tear. Overall, it was still good. Moving to the severely damaged front, he removed the damaged AC compressor, brake pump, and piping. The guy said all wiring and piping would need to be replaced after removing the wheels and suspension links. He continued removing the underbody panel and discovered that the subframe was also damaged. This wasn't good news, because structural components for these cars are very expensive. One might cost tens of thousands of dollars. For safety reasons, they don't repair them, but replace with new ones. Meanwhile, the purchased left door and frame rail had arrived. These were used parts Dash Wong bought from a second-hand platform. After all, original parts are too expensive. He took the door to compare, to see if it matched, checking if the panel gaps were normal. After temporarily securing the door, he found that overall it was fine. Later, he would just need to process it a bit and install the window and other components. Moving to the interior to remove the seats. These seats appear to be carbon fiber as well. They look hard. Wonder what they feel like to sit in. After removing the seats, he cleaned up a bit, then began removing the interior panels, taking out the mounting screws below, and the seatbelt came off. After working for so long, Dash Wong wanted to take a break. During this free time, he showed off a car frame he had bought. Looks like it's from a salvage car, probably from a car that had a major accident and was sold because it wasn't worth repairing. As he was talking, this frame arrived at Dash Wang's garage. Don't be fooled by this small salvage part. The whole piece is made of carbon fiber. After all, it's from a $4 million car. No wonder Dash Wong bought used parts. The new ones are truly unaffordable. Anything labeled carbon fiber is just one word: expensive. Very expensive, extremely expensive. Seeing that this salvage frame was in relatively good condition, Dash Wong decided to transfer all components to this salvage frame. Otherwise, it would involve cutting and welding operations, making the restoration work increasingly complex. It's better to transplant directly. He simply removed the windshield from the salvage frame and had to clean all the residual adhesive from the glass frame. using a ruler to measure the bracket distances, preparing for cutting, to avoid misalignment later, cutting along the measured positions. After cutting, he compared it with the new body, cutting and comparing simultaneously, checking if the cut positions would fit together. After completion, Dajwang also installed the left frame rail, determining its position, not too much, not too little, just right, to allow the adhesive to bond better. He used high-pressure air to blow away surface dust, applied masking tape, applied adhesive along the areas to be bonded, then clamped it with a fixation frame to help the adhesive set faster. He used a heat gun to apply heat. After the adhesive was completely dry, he sanded the surface. With the front bracket repair completed, the next step was transplanting components. Before removing the right door, he first removed the inner fender liner, removed the screws securing the door, lifted the door for another inspection. Because these butterfly doors are also very expensive, confirming there was no damage, he began removing the center console. Since the center console is attached to the dashboard, without removing it, the dashboard couldn't be removed. Time passed minute by minute. The two worked together, making the work less tiring. The overall interior disassembly was almost complete. Finally, only the gas and brake pedals remained. Organizing the interior wiring, the interior disassembly was complete. After removing the left and right tires, he began disassembling the rear of the car. Since the rear of the car hadn't been in a collision, all parts were intact, so there was more disassembly work than at the front. Because everything was made of carbon fiber. When working, you can't be too distracted. To avoid damaging parts, this isn't just fiberglass. Repairs are ridiculously expensive. It's often entire pieces of carbon fiber. Now, all the car's exterior panels have been removed. He doesn't take a break and continues to remove the two covers on the exhaust pipe, then begins removing the radiators from both sides. In normal cars, the cooling radiator is at the front, but its radiators are under the fenders on both sides. You can see these radiators are quite large. Experienced Dajwang removed them quickly. Before removing the engine, he needed to deal with other components, including the ECU and intake manifold. This car has ECUs and intake manifolds on both sides. During the current disassembly, this is one of the more complex areas because the heart of the car has many wire harnesses, including transmission, battery, BS pump, etc. So the process is more tedious. Removing the crash beam and rear wheel suspension system, finally raising the body, the two of them work together to pull out the engine and transmission. Dajwang expressed relief, although the left front had a serious collision. The engine in the back and transmission were completely undamaged after handling the engine and transmission. Next came the interior disassembly work, because there were many normal wiring harnesses. To facilitate later installation, Dajwang photographed all wire harness positions, keeping photos of the original wiring, then removed everything that needed removing. In no time at all, the interior wiring was taken care of. Following the camera to the fuel tank, as the fuel tank's mounting screws were loosened, the tank was pulled out. The disassembly process was quite simple and quick. The next step was transplanting the frame, lifting the subframe for better matching. Dajwang measured it and confirmed it was fine. Then the two connected the frames. After securing the screws, they connected all the piping. The photos taken earlier came in handy now. Installing while checking if everything was installed correctly, because if something went wrong here, it would cause bigger problems later. After finishing the fuel lines, the next step was installing all the wiring harnesses. I must say the car's wiring was densely packed. What if one connector was plugged in wrong? At this moment, a newly purchased seatbelt and ECU arrived, so they were installed at the same time. After half a day's work, the wiring transplant was completed. Next was installing the fuel tank onto the new body. The previously removed fuel tank still contained fuel for safety reasons. Before installation, all the fuel needed to be drained out, following the principle of not wasting anything. So, they added the fuel directly to their own pickup truck, then installed the fuel tank in its original position and connected the fuel lines. After installing the partition behind the fuel tank, it was time for engine installation. First, they moved the entire body backward to make space for the engine. To ensure safety, the body was secured with straps. Then inside the car, they removed the rear panel and pushed the engine under the rear frame support, then used wood blocks to prop up the engine so they could slowly lower the body, lowering while making adjustments, aligning the engine mounting holes with the frame. Then they could begin securing the engine and start installing the components around the engine, installing everything back the way it was removed, connecting all the necessary wiring. There wasn't much commentary during this process. He's now installing the brake lines, inserting the two pipe ends into the distributor, then tightening the screw in the middle of the distributor, then reinstalling the rear suspension on both sides, including the rear wing lift struts, which were all installed. After completing the suspension, he started installing the exhaust pipes on both sides. Due to the limited space, the installation was somewhat difficult. It took about half an hour to complete, with the exhaust pipes installed. Next were the intake manifolds, also one on each side. and they installed the ECUs on both sides. Then a new issue arose. The left intake manifold was cracked, with a small hole broken through. They had no choice but to order new parts. While waiting for the parts, they continued connecting the rear fuel lines and wiring, including installing the radiators on both sides. After finishing all that, they added refrigerant to the air conditioning system. While adding the AC refrigerant, they also installed the crossbar under the transmission. Now, the entire process was about restoration. Most of the major components had been transplanted to the new body. When the rear section was nearly done, they moved to the front, continuing with the previously repaired wiper bracket. Because on this bracket, there were still some cracked parts that weren't firmly bonded. They were also concerned about the bracket's strength, so they applied adhesive for bonding. To speed up the adhesive setting, they brought over a heat lamp. While waiting for the glue to set, they began checking each fuse in the car's fuse box to avoid future issues due to fuse problems. After inspection, they did a simple cleaning of the interior and continued connecting wiring harnesses, installing, while reviewing the disassembly videos they recorded to avoid connecting the wrong plugs. After installing the ECU and connecting all the wiring, the adhesive on the wiper bracket had dried, so they sanded it, cleaned it with cleaner, and then painted it. The next task was installing the interior components, installing the brake pedal. Before installing the dashboard, they cleaned the dust off it, connected all wiring before securing it. In no time, Dash Wang had it installed. Next, they needed to assemble the center console. Dash Wang was very careful during the process. Installing the center console wasn't actually difficult. For the interior restoration, I won't explain too much. It probably took about half an hour to complete. Installing the center console, gear selector buttons, and the central display screen. The interior installation was almost complete. Now, he was transplanting the original headliner. All the wiring needed to be removed and reinstalled on the new body. Finally, installing all the sun visors, completing the headliner, then installing the weather stripping on the door frames. All edges had to be pressed firmly, otherwise weather strip wear or water leakage could occur. After installing the weather stripping, they secured the panel clips behind the seats. Finally, with the installation of the engine cover at the rear, the interior, except for the two seats, was complete. Professionals do professional work. For a beginner, even with hands-on guidance, they wouldn't know how. Installation isn't just taking things apart and putting them back. All components must be restored to their original positions. After completing the interior installation, they use cleaner to clean the interior. After finishing the cleaning, they began installing the seats. After connecting all the wiring one by one, like seatbelt indicator wires, seat adjustment wires, etc., finally securing with their screws. And it was done. Next, they transplanted the original doors, requiring the people to work together, aligning all hinge holes for installation. After installing the door trim panels, they opened and closed the door to check. You can see the panel gaps were very good, since the left door had been destroyed in the crash. They bought one from a dealer, but it hadn't arrived yet. Next, they took the original right front suspension directly to the new body for installation, but the left front suspension was scrapped due to the collision accident. It will need to be reordered later. Install the right front suspension, then mount the right side beam. Now both left and right beams have been installed. Now comes another headache for him. That's all the wiring harnesses in the front of the car, as well as the brake lines from the original car. Transplanting the ABS pump and steering gear. As the body transplant reaches the stage, the parts he ordered earlier have arrived. This in the video is the newly ordered subframe, salvage parts, and left suspension, along with an exhaust system, custom-made titanium alloy exhaust. The subframe is a used salvage part, so it needs to be cleaned. Raise the body, install the steering shaft, then secure the subframe bolts. After securing, apply thread locker to the bolts. Then continue connecting wiring and piping, including air conditioning and ABS pump. At the same time as the installation, the left suspension and brake disc have arrived. Since all the front wiring is connected, Dash Wang wants to see if the vehicle can power up. Install the fuse box on the battery. Connect the positive and negative terminals. He excitedly walks to the driver's seat. Now the vehicle can power up normally, proving his wiring connections are correct. The instrument panel displays normally. This McLaren is only 2,000 miles on the odometer, about 4,000 kilometers. Dash Wang wants to try starting it, but he needs to check things first. Otherwise, starting the engine without oil could easily damage the engine. So, he can't do the ignition test yet. He removes the rear wheel to check the brake fluid condition and the brake fluids, water content level. If the water content is too high, it could cause brake failure. He also bleeds air from the brake lines. After checking everything, he adds engine oil and fuel. After all preparations, He reconnects the battery's negative terminal, then enters the cabin for the startup test. That's the 7-OS for you. But didn't everyone notice the sound isn't quite right? It's because the exhaust hasn't been installed yet. The sound should be nicer after installing the exhaust. The startup is fine. Next is restoring the rear components. Connect the radiator coolant pipes. Add coolant. After adding coolant, he needs to start it again. Because after adding coolant, the car needs to idle. Then check the coolant level again. He gets excited during this process, repeatedly revving the engine, creating thick smoke. But Dodge Wong says this is normal. After dealing with the coolant, he begins removing components from the rear, removing the intake ducts on both sides, then removing the front section of the exhaust. He wants to replace the front section of the exhaust. After tightening all the mounting bolts, he starts the car again to hear how it sounds with the exhaust installed. Let's listen to both sounds. Which one everyone prefers. You can leave your opinion in the comments. At this stage, with the main components installed, next is installing the body panels. What he's holding is the windshield cowl installed on both sides of the radiator and all the fender. You can see, this McLaren 7-OS is taking shape. The next day, the doors arrived. Dodge Wong begins removing components from them. After disassembly, he transplants them directly to his own doors. You can see the left rear fender has a large gap. He removes the left rear fender, hammers and taps it, grinding and polishing. After finishing, he checks again. The overall gap, the curve and flatness are perfect. The next job is sanding and applying putty. Before applying putty, it needs cleaning. Then start applying putty, spreading it evenly. After that comes the first round of sanding. Install it to check the panel gaps, confirming everything is fine. Then begin the second round of putty and sanding. I have to say, to restore a car, especially a supercar, to its original condition, there are definitely many restoration steps. Handling details requires a lot of technical skill. It's not as simple as it looks. Whether dismantling or assembling, or welding, cutting, painting, and so on, professional work requires expertise. Next is continuing exterior restoration. Because it's carbon fiber material, areas needing repair, he applies resin adhesive over fiberglass. After the glue dries, sand it down. This helps with later sanding. Other damaged parts are repaired the same way. I won't go through each one, using sandpaper for finishing. Now both doors have completed pre-painting preparation. He takes both doors to the paint booth for final cleaning. This is the most important step before painting. After cleaning, apply the primer coat. I'm sure you've seen painting processes many times. Usually primer first, then clear coat. He directly applies 3 layers. After priming both doors, he continues to work on the left rear fender and continues sanding the rear bumper. After a series of repairs and sanding, he begins painting the left rear fender and rear bumper. Same procedure, 3 coats of primer. Same procedure, applying 3 coats of primer. After priming the left rear fender and rear bumper, after applying primer, he takes out the newly purchased front bumper, removing the decorative parts from it. After disassembling the front bumper, he starts removing the 2 air intake covers from the hood and removes the car emblem as well, because the hood also needs painting. After removing everything, all painted surfaces need to be sanded. The sanding work is coming to an end now. It may not seem like long to you, but from panel beating to sanding and painting, Dodge Wong spent about a week. The next day, his previously ordered parts arrived. The arrival of these parts means he's one step closer to happiness, because he can test drive once they're installed. The McLaren's front doesn't have many components. The front parts, fuel lines, and wiring, crash bar installation is largely complete. Now, he begins checking the brake fluid, then gets in to test the brakes, checking brake response. After confirming everything's fine, add coolant. Since Dodge Wong doesn't have a tire machine, he can only go to a tire shop to mount tires. After mounting all 4 wheels, clean the body. Now, this McLaren 7 OS can finally move under its own power. He's now driving it outside. Although the body panels aren't installed, it's still clearly a ferocious beast. When I was a kid, I couldn't identify cars, but I knew a car was special when it had wide, flat tires. That's how you knew it was special. For this road test, he won't drive aggressively, just checking for oil or water leaks. Hey Ben, rev it a few times. After the road test, no problems were found. Dajwang is very happy because he's about to successfully restore another big toy, driving it back to the garage. The remaining work is relatively simple, just the exterior painting, front assembly, and body panel installation. Dajwang plans to paint this McLaren white. What color do you all think looks good? You can leave comments. He's already cleaned off the remaining adhesive. Next, he removes all parts that need painting. Dajwang suddenly remembers the driver's airbag hasn't been replaced yet. He sits in the car and opens the entire airbag assembly. After installing the airbag, he starts replacing the new left front headlight wiring harness. This work is quite complex. He looks at photos on his phone while connecting everything. After connecting everything, he tests the high and low beams. No problems. After the headlights, he begins installing the windshield. Before installing the glass, cleaning is essential. After cleaning, he applies adhesive around the glass frame. Do people lift the windshield? Position it correctly. Secure it with tape on the roof to prevent sliding. Then install the interior rearview mirror. The interior installation is complete. Now finally comes the exterior painting work. As usual, cleaning comes first before painting. Then he can begin applying primer. Layer after layer of paint is applied. Eventually all components become white. Then he turns on the paint booth heater. While waiting for it to dry, Dajwang goes to the dealer to pick up previously ordered parts. Back at the garage, he applies a second coat to the dried components. This time he does a careful cleaning, prepares the base coat, and sprays it evenly. After several hours of painting work, all panel painting is complete. After waiting 2 days for the paint to dry completely, Dajwang begins the final assembly of the 720S. The final assembly work. This involves many small components. Installation is quite tedious. Carefully install the door sealing strips. After completing the door assembly, next is installing the door exterior panels and left and right fenders, plus the hood and front bumper. The entire front bumper assembly is complete. Next, he continues with the rear bumper installation. The rear bumper has more wiring. Backup camera, taillights, and parking sensor wiring all need to be reinstalled. After installing the decorative parts, the rear bumper assembly is complete. Installing the rear exterior components is the most extensive part. Parts of all sizes need to be reinstalled. As you can see in the video, the larger parts are the left and right fenders and the rear bumper, plus a large carbon fiber spoiler. Finally, with the McLaren emblem in place, the restoration of this McLaren 7 OS is basically complete. Connect the battery, install the front trunk liner, and all for wheels. This McLaren 7 OS with its completely smashed front end, after 3 months of restoration by Dajwang and repainting to a new color, is finally like new again. Now, Dajwang can't wait to take it out on the street, just like if we had our own supercar, eager to take it for a spin. But before taking it out, he needs to wash it as usual. After washing, this McLaren 7 OS looks just like new.